ABC. Side AC is 28. Angle A is 35. Angle B is 48. CB is X, and then we're also going to find this third side and call it Y. All right, so I told you the other day the first thing to do was to find this missing angle measure. Anybody do that? Good. It was how many degrees? 97. Good. All right. So now we can go ahead and write our two ratios, or I'm sorry, our two proportions. The law of sines states that the sine of an angle over its opposite side is equal to the sine of an angle over its opposite side. So if we take an angle that we know and a side that we know that are opposite of each other, we can say the sine of 48 over 28 is equal to the sine of 35 over x. Now look, while we're here, this is also equal to the sine of 97 over y. So we can kind of, by writing this extended proportion, we can save some time. All right, so we won't have to write this later. So the first thing I'm going to do is crisscross multiply, and I'm going to take this sine 48 times x and make it equal to sine 35 times 28. And if we divide both sides by sine 48, the left side will cancel and we're left with x. So this can be a calculator problem now. 35 sine times 28. Make sure you push the equals button and then divide it by 48 sine. And I'm going to go second fix 1. So I got 21.6. So our x is equal to 21.6. And now what you can do is with this same extended proportion, we're just going to take this first ratio, and now we're going to multiply it by the third ratio to solve for y. So we're going to do sine 48 times the y equal to sine 97 times 28. And divide both sides by sine 48. These signs cancel. We're left with y on the left. And in the calculator, 97 sine times 28 equals, and then divided by 48 sine. And y equals 37.4. So right there, what we did, that's a 3-step problem. Okay, that was number 1 from page 107. That's what a quiz question is going to look like tomorrow. You'll have to find the missing angle, and then you'll have to find the two missing sides. So here's your x, here's your y. And that missing angle will probably be called like a z or something like that. Got it? Okay. Now, let's take a look at number 4. from the other day. And we've got this triangle here. ABC again. AC is 8. Angle A is 73 degrees. CB is 17. Angle B is X degrees. We're going to make angle C Y degrees. And we're going to call side AB, we're going to call that Z. All right, so what you're missing here, you're missing an angle measure to begin with. All right, so here's your setup in a problem like this where you're missing 2 angle measures. You're going to start off with sine 73 over 17. And we're going to set that equal to, we're going to set it equal to the sine of x over 8, because 8 is the only other side that we know. So we're going to say sine of x over 8. Now, we're not going to extend this ratio yet because we're not going to write sine of y over z. We're going to find some angle measures first. So we're going to crisscross multiply here. We're going to say sine of x times 17 equals sine of 73 times 8. Then, pay attention. This is important. We're going to divide both sides by 17. We want this sine of x by itself. So we get here, we get sine of x equals, because the 17s cancel. And then that's a calculator operation. That's 73 sine times 8 equals, and then divide that by 17. You get 0.5. Law of cosine you can use with 2 sides and an included angle. You don't have, this angle C would be the included angle. All right? You either needed in this problem to use law of cosines, you either needed angle C or you needed the value of Z. 2 sides and an included angle. All right, so if the sine of angle X equals 0.5, that 0.5 is sitting on your calculator. If you run it inverse sine of 0.5, it'll give you the angle measure. All right? If the sine of an angle equals a number, the inverse sine of that number equals the angle. So you can push second sine. So sine of x equals 0.5. So the measure of angle B is equal to, all right, 26.7. And instead of calling it the measure of angle B, let's do it this way. Let's just call it X. All right, you had some quiz questions that looked like this. All right, but they looked like sine, and they had a blank. And it said equals 0.5. And all you did was you typed 0.5 second sine, and it gave you the angle measure. All right, here it is. There's your X value. So now you can take 180 and subtract 73 and then subtract 26.7. And that will give you your Y value. All right, round to the nearest degree. I'm rounding to the nearest degree then. We'll make this 27 degrees. So your x is 27 degrees. So your y is going to be equal to 180 minus 73 minus the 27. 80 degrees. There's your y value. So your y is equal to 80 degrees. Your x is equal to 27 degrees. Now we need side z. So you can use this original proportion now. You got sine 73 over 17. We can go or set it equal to sine 80 over z. And now we can crisscross multiply this first and this last again. So sine 73 times z is equal to sine 80 times 17. So divide both sides by sine 73. These will cancel. And your z is going to be equal to 80 sine times 17 divided by 73 sine. 17.5. That rounds to, if we're going to the nearest, round angle measures to the nearest degree and side lengths to the nearest tenth. So side length to the nearest tenth, we're done. So here's your x, here's your y, and here's your z. So we used law of sines, we used inverse sine, and we wrote an extended proportion. So we did everything that you can do in relation to law of sines to solve that triangle. Any questions on any of those steps? All right, let's take a look at number 9. Now we've got a triangle. Hello? Good morning. Let me pause my video then. Yeah, that's fine. All right, here we go. We got triangle P, R, and Q. We got a side of 12. We got a side of 16. We got a side of 11. We're going to call this x degrees. I'm going to call this y degrees. And this will be z degrees. So we got no angles, right? No angles. With no angles, you can't use law of sine. All right? But if you got 3 sides, you could use law of cosines, and at the end, use inverse cosine to find an angle measure. All right? Because the law of cosines says this. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to solve for angle X first. All right? Just because I feel like it. You can solve for any angle you want in here first. I'm going to solve for the X first, which means I got to start with this 16. Because if you remember law of cosines, it said that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times cosine of A, which would be the angle across from the side that you're trying to find. Or, yeah, that you're trying to find. But we know this side. So what we can say is that 16 squared is equal to our other two sides, 12 squared plus 11 squared, minus 2 times 12 times 11 times cosine of this x, okay? Cosine of x. So now let's get all our calculations done. We got 16x squared, that's 256. So 256 equals 12x squared plus 11x squared. That's 265. Minus 2 times 12 times 11. That's 264. Times cosine of x. So now our 256 is equal to, what's 265 minus 264? 1 times cosine of x. And now we're going to divide both sides by 1. So 256 equals cosine of x. This is odd. So what do I do next to find the angle measure? It goes back to this, doesn't it? Cosine of x equals 256. How do you find the angle measure? Does it? I was afraid of that. I was afraid of that. What happened there? That's probably, yeah. Yes. Good call. So let's get rid of this. Yeah, come on in. You're okay. This is 265 minus all of that, right? Because you got to multiply before you subtract. So let's subtract the 265 from each side. Minus 265, minus 265. So what's 256 minus 265? Negative 90 equals negative 264 times cosine of x. And now what would you do to get cosine x by itself? Negative 9. What do you do now to get cosine x by itself? Attaboy. Divide by negative 264. So negative 9 divided by 264 negative equals, what do y'all get? 0.03 equals cosine of x. Now what happens? 0.03 second cosine equals 88. 88.28. We're going whole numbers on angles, right? So 88 equals x. So we're going to add this to your notes right here. If 0.03 equals cosine of x, then x equals 88. Because we had that 0.03 on your calculator screen and you're working with cosine, so you push second cosine button. So there's your x of 88 degrees. This step right here is super important. Don't make that mistake that I did by I subtracted before I multiplied. Can't do that. You got to get the 265 on the other side first, and don't forget that this negative sign is going to stay with the 264 times your cosine x. Because in your next step, you'll have to divide by that negative. All right? So now, what you can do, you can go back to law of sines. I think it's faster. All right? And get this angle y. So law of sines says the sine of an angle, sine of 88 over its opposite side, 16, is equal to sine of an angle, we'll do sine of y, over its opposite side, which is 11. So crisscross multiply, we'll do sine of y times 16 equals sine 88 times 11. So 88 sine times 11, 10.99. Divide both sides by 16. So sine of y equals, I got 0.687. All right, so if the sine of y equals 0.687, then y is going to equal, we'll go second sine, 43.39, so we're going to go 43. All right, so our y is equal to 43 degrees. So now to complete this triangle, we're going to subtract these two angles from 180. So that leaves z equal to 49 degrees. Everybody see it? Anybody not see it? Got a question about any of those steps in number 9? All right, let's do one more. We're we're going to do number 13 on that page. And here's what we got. Here's our X, here's our Y, and here's our Z. So based on the given information, you're given two sides and you're given an included angle. Two sides and the included angle, that's a candidate for law of cosines. So here we go. The side opposite the given angle is the side you're trying to find. That's your X. So X squared is equal to, yes ma'am. That's all right. She's not here. She's e-learning today. Okay, bye. All right, so our X squared is equal to 13 squared plus 35 squared minus 2 times 13 times 35 times 2, no, not times 2, times what? Cosine of what? 96, very good. So this is a straight calculator problem. X squared equals, we got 13 squared plus 35, 1394, minus 2 times 13 times 35 times 96 cosine equals. Anybody get negative 95.12? Negative 95.12. All right, so we're subtracting a negative, we're going to add. So our X squared equals 1394 plus 95.12, 1489.12. And then square root button. What do y'all get? Anybody do it? 38.6. What are we doing on side lengths? Side lengths to the nearest tenth. So 38.6 on that side length. So there's your X value. So this X, this is 38.6. Now we can go back to law of sines. I'll solve for Y because it's next alphabetically. So our law of sines says that the sine of an angle, sine of 96 over its opposite side, 38.6, is equal to the sine of an angle. We can go sine of Y over 35. Now we can solve for the sine of Y and use inverse sine to find that angle measure. So we're going to crisscross multiply. Sine of Y times 38.6 is equal to 35 times 96 sine, 34.8. Going to divide both sides by 38.6. These will cancel. Our sine of y is equal to, we got 34.8 divided by 38.6.90. And second sine equals, I got 64. So let's see, 64.36, that's 64 degrees. So if the sine of y equals 90, then y equals 64. There's your y value. So 64 degrees. And then your z value is just found by subtraction. So 180 minus 96 minus 64 is 20 degrees. All right, and that's 4 different types of problems using law of cosines and law of sines. I think I did 4 problems, didn't I? 13, 9, 4, and 1. All right, so look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to modify today's assignment a little bit. Here's your study guide. Here's today's assignment. This is quiz, what are we on? 11. Quiz 11, study guide. Is going to be page 107. The 4 problems we just did. But here's what you got to do. You got 1, 4, 9, and 13. 1, 4, 9, and 13. Solve each triangle. That means find everything that's missing. Okay? Now, you've got these problems worked out step by step in your notes if you took notes. I'll upload this when we're done here. I'm going to upload this to YouTube. I'm going to call it Quiz 10 or Quiz 11 Study Guide. What I want you to do now is I want you to go back to those 4 problems, and I want you to try to do each of them without looking at your notes. When you're done, you can check your answers. Okay? You need to keep doing that until you can get all 4 of those correct without looking at your notes. Understand? So that's your practice for today. You got the, till the bell rings. I don't want it in here till 10:07. If you can do those 4 problems the way I just did them and solve each triangle without looking at your notes, then you're ready for the quiz tomorrow. Got it? So that's your assignment for today. Any questions from you Zoom people? All right, then I'm going to end this meeting and upload today's notes to YouTube. Today's notes will serve as your study guide. Page 107, numbers 1, 4, 9, and 13 are also your study guide. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, you guys are free to exit the meeting then at this time.